The world can seem upside down at times, which has set me on a journey in search for love, truth, and ultimately personal freedom. I'm on a mission to help people find peace and healing so that each of us as individuals and ultimately the collective can be free from whatever keeps us stuck and skews our view of just how beautiful this life can be. Welcome to the Mack Show. Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another episode of the Mack Show. I'm Mack. Today, this episode is so beautiful, and for many, I guarantee it's going to be one stretchy episode as far as content goes, but hang in there because it's so important. I have one of the most beautiful souls, Hallie Lifson, on the podcast, who is a priestess who is helping women reclaim their divine feminine and embodiment. And we met at a retreat that truly changed my life, and it was so healing. Her and her husband, Roman, are incredible people. And this conversation is beautiful, and she shares her story. And I just know that it will be a blessing to many of you. So, Hallie, thank you for coming on. And everyone, I'm sending you love and enjoy the episode. All right, brothers and sisters, like I said, I had the distinct pleasure of spending time with this beautiful priestess and powerful woman, and now my sister and friend, Hallie Lifson. Thanks for coming on. And first of all, it's really good to see you.
I know. It feels like it's been forever, like
Yeah.
a lifetime.
Yeah.
But then when I met you, I felt like I'd known you for lifetimes.
Seriously. We have known each other for a lifetime.
I suspect we have.
Yes. In the intro, I talk about just the cool experience of meeting and being at a retreat, but it's not, no one's story starts at going to a retreat like that. So if you don't mind sharing, how did you even enter into the world that you're doing? I know you have a background in occupational therapy, but tell me your story of how you got into this.
How I got into Tantra?
Yeah, and just the healing modality and all that you're working on.
Well, that I would have to go back very, very far. So my grandmother lived across the street from the Edgar Cayce Psychic Research Center, is where it really all started.
Oh,
Yeah. At her
there
beach
you
house.
go. And
Yeah,
there you
her
go.
beach house was there, and I worked in the library. And
Wow.
so I was fortunate to start my education in Montessori school. So I
Wow.
think very early on, I was encouraged to follow my bliss, follow my interests, and learn what lights me up. And so that's what I did. And I don't think most people I did end up going to traditional school, both public and private, but I think because my beginnings were that, the foundation was laid there. So I basically didn't have this mechanistic system that kicked the spirit out of me at
Mm,
an early age. So
yeah.
somehow I maintained my curiosity and have always followed my bliss. I had, at the age of 15, an experience where I went through each of the 7 energy centers in my body with a tantric meditation text
Wow.
that I got at the Edgar Cayce Center. And that's when I realized that there was a lot more going on than what we were told, that the universe is much more interesting. There's levels to this. And so that started me on my journey at the age of 15.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you recognize in yourself that you were drawn to this and other kids might not have been, or how did you ever recognize or observe yourself?
Well, I think yes. But I also followed what was lighting me up. So I
Mhm.
typically found other people who were doing things that they
Mhm.
enjoyed too. So I
Yeah.
did a lot of theater. And
Oh,
then I majored in philosophy, English, and theater. So I was always with people who are more creative, more artistic, had touched in maybe more to their intuitive natures, I guess more free-spirited in
mhm.
general. And yeah, so that's always been me, continues to be me. And I think when I was raising my family, it was kind of like the time of forgetting because I was so
Mm,
busy raising the family and doing all the things and trying to be the best at all the things. And so I really wasn't taking very good care of myself, my spirit, my body, any of that, which I think is a typical story for most women. And when I reconnected with this remembrance that, like, oh, women aren't here to be the beasts of burden. We're actually
mm,
here to have every act
yeah.
be a ritual of love and beauty
Mm,
and create a much more beautiful world of form
yeah.
when we are really nourished and we're coming from a state of overflow rather than depletion. So,
Amazing. So beautiful. It reminds me when, so I gave my first TED Talk in 2019, which was breaking the cycle of child abuse. But then I also got invited to be on this other, I was selected for another TED Talk. And the theme at the time, but it got canceled due to
the
COVID. Yeah. But the whole thesis was that when men heal, the world heals. And it was during this, it was kind of following the time of the tail end of the Me Too movement. And I recognize that in any group of people that have been victimized in some way, shape, or form, that was the group that held the power to break the cycle of pain in the world. It didn't matter what group it is.
Mhm.
And it's what you're so what's beautiful about what you're saying is you're breaking the cycle from the beast of burden to this beauty. And instead of the victim mindset, reclaiming and remembering the power, and then it gives everyone else permission, men, women, it doesn't matter, where they are, that
Yeah.
permission. That was the point of my talk is that when we stop projecting our pain upon even those that hurt us, but we reclaim our own sovereignty and do the work,
Mhm.
everything else changes. And what's so cool, especially seeing you and Roman, of like the masculine being the container for the feminine creative to
Mhm.
explore and blossom. It is so beautiful. And so anyway,
Thank
I
you.
love your
Yeah.
journey and I'm so glad you're on the podcast and I'm so glad I know you.
Yeah, we had such a wonderful special time. It was sacred theater. It was
Wow.
like really so much fun and play and
Yeah.
yeah, and that's really what I think we've forgotten is that we come down in here and we get stuck in these, institutions and ways of thinking and we get programmed with a lot of nonsense, honestly. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the middle part of our life is really like deconditioning and deprogramming all that was put in at a really young age. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm having so much fun.
Amazing. Amazing.
Aren't you?
Yes, I am, especially after coming back from the weekend. In fact, even in therapy, the therapist said that there was a before you went to that and there was an after you went to that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
It's
there's something about tantra and like really connecting in with the spiritual body, the energetic spiritual body, and bringing it into the physical
mm,
that tantra helps you to remember. And I honestly believe that no marriage can really be firing on all cylinders past a certain point until both partners are participating in very consciousness expanding
mm,
sex because you're going to get bored. Like after about
mm,
6 7 years you're going to like get really bored, but when you tap into this universal life force energy,
yeah,
you realize that it is a portal to your own expansion, your own consciousness expansion, so it
amazing.
becomes a whole different thing.
Amazing. I had Leola on the podcast. That's how I even heard about the whole thing. And for me, so much healing that I had to do and that I was processing even at that weekend. It's so beautiful, regardless of where anyone is on their journey of how they're exploring. When we come to this, remembering or knowing or just sensation of embodiment, everything changes. Everything
Yeah,
changes.
everything changes. Well, because for so long we were taught to live from the heart chakra up. And,
Mm.
that was very purposeful. It was to disconnect us from our power source so that we would need to seek authority outside of ourselves. And so it worked.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
really did work because, well, then we had all the witch burnings and all
yeah,
of that. So that created a lot of fear, and everybody had to go underground and hide just to survive.
yes,
All the indigenous populations were wiped out because they were very
yes,
connected to their power source and to the earth.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, yeah, so really we're just remembering a lot of ancient wisdom and a way of being more in harmony with ourselves and with the earth
Mm.
and each other.
I was telling my employees yesterday, my team, that it's very important to remember that Earth is an anagram for heart, EARTH or HEART. And when we don't have a proper relationship with the Earth, we cannot have a proper relationship with even our own heart. And
Mhm.
like you're saying, the wiping out, I call it the machine virus, the dark consciousness, like all that machine almost, they couldn't stop it, but almost completed their mission of removing us from that relationship and all the indigenous peoples. And I say that Rome, and you get Ro man or Raw man, they play on these, their
Mhm.
spell, they're the Phoenicians and the phonetics and their spellcraft with their language and
Mhm.
angels language is English, and that's where they cast spells. But
Mhm.
um the Roman machine used to have, they would send emissaries out to new lands they're about to conquer, and they would come with a message that we are coming, submit or die. There was no, what do you think? No negotiation. That was it.
Yeah.
And then when Rome fell as a political power or perceived political power, they turned their emissaries into missionaries. But the missionaries
Mm.
came with the exact same message.
Yeah, it
We're
was. And the
coming.
first thing to go were the priestesses.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they wiped us out immediately because, yeah, that we were always the one that we were giving the sacrament.
Mm.
We were the ones who were um not always, but typically it was the priestesses who were doing the midwifery, the herb craft.
Yeah.
A lot of the healing at that point was
Yes.
done. The men were, hunting in the fields and,
You're right.
so yeah, it's not that it was a matriarchal society at that time at all, but there was a lot of reverence for the priestess. So
Yes.
that's really what I'm about, is reclaiming the priestess. And
Hmm.
something really clicked in me when I went to India. And I realized that we were with the Brahmins and a bunch of different gurus. We were with three different gurus while I was there. And I did take mantra with a tantric lineage with a female guru, which is very
Wow.
rare. And it's so wonderful to have
Wow.
that really ancient lineage, the grace of that lineage. But what I really saw was that there was this knowing that every mother and father were the priest and the priestess in the family.
Yes.
And it was, that is not at all how I was raised. My parents were very much like bankers,
Hmm.
going to work, my mother and my father both all day. And they were worker bees.
Yeah. Yeah.
They actually worked for the church too. They were always on the vestry or doing
Wow.
whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. And so,
Fascinating that you would come through that line to what you're doing to reclaim it.
well, I will say this. I did see females as ministers
Hmm.
in the Episcopal Church, and everyone was always welcome at the communion table. So there was a general, I don't know, and we also didn't take the Bible literally,
Yeah. Yeah.
clearly, because I think, Henry VIII is the one that created that church, and he was
Yeah.
just like, I'm going to make up my own rules.
Right.
But
Right. Exactly.
for what it's worth.
Right.
But we did have a lot of the ritual, which
Hmm.
was in me. The ritual was in me. I love the bells. I love the smells. I love the frankincense. I
Hmm.
love the candles. I love the feeling of dropping your ego at the door and really walking in and having an experience of your soul.
Hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sacred geometry in those old churches is
Yes.
undeniable.
Unbelievable. Yes.
The
Yes.
first churches may have been around a spring with a grove of trees, which is equally as magnificent.
Yeah.
But yeah, even my husband, who's Russian, who didn't grow up with the religion, loves to go into all of the cathedrals in
Yeah.
Europe. It's one of his favorite things because it does. You have an immediate reverence.
Yeah.
So that's what I create in my temple space.
I love it. And so when did you go from professional, like the occupational therapist, tell me that jump, or what was that like for you? Was that a little,
Yeah, well, I started off before I even went to grad school as a childbirth educator and doula.
wow,
So
really? That's
so
amazing.
I attended births and
Wow.
welcomed souls in and was already in the role of a priestess before,
Yeah.
being able to articulate or even having that phrase that name
Mm,
for what I was doing. And then I also was able to help people pass on to the next realm, which is also what the priestesses were always doing, helping to clear the karma, so that nobody brought the karma into their next incarnation.
wow.
So, so I had that like embodied experience, and then when I went to OT school, I knew that I wanted to help people. I had been helping people, but it was very mechanistic.
Mhm.
The great thing about it was though I got to dissect an entire body and I really know the body and I know it is perfectly designed.
Mm,
Like it definitely is designed with the hand of God. It is
yeah.
so perfect.
Yeah.
So I have so much reverence for the body.
Mm,
And that job basically enabled me to be with my children as much as humanly possible when they
mm,
were young.
that's
So I
beautiful.
had a lot of flexibility. And then I got tired of it. I got bored of it. I didn't like being in an institution and having, yeah, my creativity stifled. Although
Mm.
I will say that I was the best in the school system because those poor souls in there, 6 hours a day, I would come in and be like, and now we're doing yoga. We're
That's
going to crawl around on the floor like
that's
we are
amazing.
elephants or whatever,
Yeah.
just to get kids, into their bodies.
Amazing.
Um, and that's really what I continue to do is it's about embodiment for me. It's
Mm,
about um, coming all the way in. And for
mm,
a long time, I avoided the tantra aspect. I was guiding like tantra light temples,
mm.
just so I did because I didn't want to freak anybody out.
Yeah.
But that really is our power source, and we have, especially now after all these thousands of years of um, really trauma,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
The women, when we can reconnect, we give you guys the permission.
Yes. Yes.
So the temples are really about clearing out what doesn't serve us anymore and truly stepping into our truest, highest
Mm,
soulful essence.
yeah.
And we do that over 7 months. So it's not like a little 6 week thing, like, oh, I'm going to go activate my soul voice now.
Right.
We're
Right.
going in and we're starting with cervical de-armoring. And so everybody learns how to do that, how to get in touch with their cervix,
Wow.
which has had so much trauma. It's been poked, it's been prodded, it's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
not revered at all. It's literally the portal,
Mm.
So we start there.
Amazing. I mean, that's I guess that makes sense of where if you're gonna go for it, start the right.
Yeah, people talk about the root chakra being the base of your spine. I'm like, no, actually, no. It's for
Mm,
females, it's your cervix. So,
mm.
yeah, and that's how everybody comes in.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we do a lot of clearing of that and a lot of womb activation, womb healing, a lot of dancing,
Mm,
a lot of chanting, a lot of singing, a lot of sharing. And before everybody walks in the temple, I act as, and this is coming from just like ancient literature, I act as the temple gate. So
mm.
I ask a particular question depending on what frequency we're in that month. I do go through the body. So we start at the root and we go all the way to the crown.
Beautiful.
But I do ask a question and everyone has to answer from the womb of silence. So you're not answering from your personality self. You have to get quiet,
Mm,
really tap into your heart space, to your womb space, and answer and be witnessed by everyone in the temple with your answer. So we really get to know one another. You really get to know yourself. And I'll tell you, if you want to talk about abuse, when you have women who are meeting twice a month in this way on the new moon and the full moon, and then they actually get a one-on-one session with me too,
Mm.
uh, there is no way you could be in an abusive relationship. It wouldn't be allowed. Your soul would be calling you out every time you answered at the gate, and your sisters would be witnessing you, and it just wouldn't stand. And there's a reason why we were burned when we met in groups of more than two, because we do manifest together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every single sister in there is articulating her desires, and we are all helping her manifest her highest and best
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
I don't know. This is coming up for me when I've had just since the retreat, I've just everything has changed for me in such beautiful ways. This week, I've had these memories come back, um, childhood memories that were really good. I have so many painful, horrific memories that have stayed with me, and sometimes I'm like, man, my brain just won't pull up any good
Mm.
memories. But I had this week some really beautiful memories. One of them was this is so random, but also it's probably going to sound random when I tell the story, but I'll tie it together. Um, I grew up in this evangelical Christian church and really bizarre religious family, on my dad's side and my mom's side, and very influential in different religious lines.
Hmm.
And but the church I grew up in, and there's a story of why we are going there. But anyway, it was at one time I remember it being somewhat like a pure experience. And 2 days ago, I woke up and I this man's name popped in my head, and I'm like, and I'm saying his name is Bob Fitz. If anyone looks up Bob Fitz, I'm like Bob
Bob
Fitz,
Fitz.
Yeah, Fits, and so I looked this guy up on iTunes and I find the album that it was these songs that he had wrote all these songs at the church. Like he's very popular in Christianity in like the late 80s and early 90s.
Hmm.
And I was listening to this music and it brought back such good memories. And it was interesting as it was not about Christianity because I have left that world. It was
Hmm.
not about any dogma, doctrine, words. It was about the frequency of this man was so pure in his songwriting and it was so beautiful, and I remembered that as a little boy and I had this experience.
Hmm.
And so I finished his album yesterday that I remembered these songs, and so I was like, oh, I'll listen to another one. So I'm listening to the other one driving to work this morning, and there's this one point where he's like talking. It was a live album,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, I want everyone to just put your hand on the person next to you and just let the Holy Spirit move however the Holy Spirit wants to move. And I was like, it was so beautiful. It was so pure. And what I
Hmm.
realized was everything is frequency.
Hmm.
Everything. Someone could use the word Jesus and curse. Some
Hmm.
people use the word Jesus as a defense mechanism to what they perceive as evil. Well, how can the same word, same phonetic, same spelling be used one way or the other? It's the intention of the person. So I'm
Yeah.
sharing, it's so beautiful to hear the intention that you bring. And why I was thinking, brought all this up, I think, is everyone listening to this podcast has their own experience with words and, like clearing the cervix. Like that's no one's I guarantee on this podcast. And we talk about everything. No one's ever heard that term before, but it's so beautiful. But their frequency was clean and pure, and and it's just I'm learning, or I'm remembering, or I'm reclaiming the frequency and our intention and the purity that we can bring and uplift and shatter all the illusions of, there is so much I've had so much association of even the word tantra. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
it's fully practice. It's a practice of the divine, and it can also not be. Jesus
Yeah.
the word can be a curse word, or Jesus the word can be a holy word. It's all about the
Yeah.
intention that one brings. So,
Yeah, you're right. And I
you know,
think when you are tapped into your body knowing, you know which one is which.
that's
But
yes.
we haven't been encouraged to tap into our womb space, which is, where our
Mm.
intuition really lives, is in our really in our animal body,
Yeah.
in our primal body is when we know something is off.
Right.
And when none of us have been encouraged to listen to that. So
Mm,
that's really what we're doing also in temple is honoring our intuition
mm,
and and tantra really, I think the root of the word, it means like to expand,
yeah. Yeah.
right? And so all that is bringing consciousness into the bedroom instead of coming into the bedroom and just having like a crotch sneeze, like something like a biological like tick kind of thing, just to
Yeah.
kind of like blow off some steam.
Yeah.
You are really exploring consciousness itself
Mm,
with your life force energy, the most potent
yeah.
thing on earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
How
and
how have you
like,
seen? Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't even know what I was going to say. So go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, how have you seen the lives of the women that have come change?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because sometimes it's not what you think. When you go through a 7 month container like this and you are doing the practices every single day, because we have practices every day,
Mm,
pleasure practices, movement, dance, and you're really in that frequency of freedom and joy more, you start to really develop a bullshit detector.
mm,
And so a lot that you may have been clinging to for many, many, many years out of convenience or fear or just like, I don't know what's coming next. What you do is you start to trust the universe and you begin to co-create with the universe. And you begin to know that you don't need to lug all of this extra stuff behind, whether it's
mm,
old stories, people, jobs, and you can really begin to step into what you came here to do
mm.
because we all came here with a soul mission.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we get wrapped up in people pleasing and obligations and this feeling like we need to make sure everybody loves us so we can survive. But when you are plugged into your power source, into God's source energy,
Yeah.
really truly and embodying it, you're unstoppable. You're
Mm,
not going to do something that is no longer in alignment. So there's a lot of people that have started new businesses. Some people have ended marriages that have not
yeah.
been working. I mean, not to scare anybody, but it's all worked out for the best.
Yeah. That's
Some marriages that were on the rocks have been completely revamped.
mm,
Businesses have been sold. So I will say things change. This isn't for people who just want a little sister circle.
yeah.
This
Yeah.
is like a deep, soulful, deep dive and
Yeah.
excavation.
Yeah. The insides out, and the
Yeah, all
outside.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think anybody who's doing women's work at this point that isn't in the body is missing it because the body is the temple.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. And there's so much there that has been so shamed, denied, denigrated. That is literally why, because they didn't want any of us tapped into our power source.
Right. Right.
So, yeah. And I think sometimes people are afraid of their own power and they find it easier to just stay small. But when you do this work, you can't anymore.
Do you, I mean, one thing what's helped me and has brought so much clarity in my life is getting clear on soul contracts and the soul's agreement of coming in, and just the fact that you had access to Edgar Casey's library. I mean, that's quite a soul agreement. However you made that, that's amazing. And then,
I don't know, but Lucas, I got to tell you, I don't know how this happened, but I ended up sitting next to Robert Edward Grant in Malibu. Do you know who he
what?
is?
Yes.
For
What?
hours and hours and hours, I sat next to him on a couch. And let me just say, like, the's a reason why my grandmother's house was across the street from the Edgar Casey Center. Okay. Like,
Wow.
I was supposed to be tapping in to everything in that library to remember why I came. And
Mm.
he looked at me and said the same thing and then sent me a text message. He's like, "Oh, you've been reincarnating over and over and over and over until the time was right." I'm like, that tracks.
Wow.
So I But I don't even know. I mean, we're going like, woo, we're going out
Yeah.
there. But I was like, either you're the biggest flim flam man to ever walk the earth, or you have like 10 brains in one. And I think it's the latter.
It's amazing. How and I don't know, usually I don't ask, but how did it work for Roman and you to, was he on this journey and then you guys met, or have you embarked on
Yeah,
this
it's so
journey
interesting. He
together?
was not at all on this journey, but I do believe that his soul chose to be born in Russia, which is full of
Mhm.
mystics, very high level
Yes.
mystics,
Oh
very
yeah.
psychic,
Yes.
mystical beings.
Yes.
And when we met, I was very upfront that I am a yogi, that I work with chakra energy, and I explained what they were. And he was like, okay, whatever. I don't really know what you're talking about, but I'll
Yeah.
go with you on that. And but we weren't like doing any kind of plant medicine or anything like that. We were
Mhm.
busy raising a family, and then we were busy raising a combined family
Yeah.
and all that goes along with that,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we lived a very traditional lifestyle in Richmond, Virginia. Our children went to
Mhm.
private school. We were going on all these fabulous vacations. The
Yeah.
kids were in all the activities. And so there really wasn't that much time for us. Because we were a blended family, we had every other weekend. So
Mm.
we did have sort of that extended honeymoon time.
Mm.
So we always had that connection was always very strong. And then we started traveling together.
Mm.
And then we started taking other people on our travels.
Amazing.
And we've been doing that for about 5 years. And now we are stepping into transmitting how to create a really strong marriage or partnership, how to create a really strong couple bubble that
Yeah.
protects both of you, honors each of your soul contracts,
Yeah.
and so that each of you are helping the other person to complete their soul contract.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So I think that's also the piece that we've been missing. The only marriage advice I ever got, especially from the church too, I've been married twice, but it was like, don't go to bed angry, don't let
Yeah. Yeah.
resentments build up. Like that was it. That was
Right.
it. So there was no ritual really. And what we've learned with Tantra is we have a daily ritual, we have an evening ritual, we have a
Mm.
weekly ritual, many different ones that we can decide to do. We
Mm.
have a sanctuary ritual, which is like a really deep dive, long, like gourmet tantric sex date.
Wow.
We have, all these
True.
different practices, and that's really what's been missing is like I said, when every household knows that the mother and the father is the priest and the priestess,
Mm.
everything's going to change.
Mm. So beautiful. So beautiful. Part of it is, learning is slow movement and slowing down. And it's just that alone is so countercultural to what's going on. Today I looked at because I'm in branding for head of brand for a global company, and I was just looking at the top 100 brands and the top in 2024 out of all the companies in the world, Instagram was number 18 in revenue over Facebook was 22. And I was telling my team like all the great things that are made in the world, like Instagram being that high ranking. And I'm like, just think what that has done to our attention. And I like Instagram. I'm not knocking it, but it's just fascinating to observe the
Mhm.
shift in cadence and then Tantra being so
Mhm.
slow and intentional and present. Um, did that take time for, I guess, for Roman to learn? I mean, or
It's funny. I do believe that he is a high level mystic and he's
mm,
come down to really ground the energy for the people around him
yeah,
to
yeah.
ascend. That's just my intuition telling me that. But
Mm,
the minute I was like, oh, I want to bring this into the bedroom and we started with the breath work, he had it.
wow.
But we've also been CrossFitting together for 10 years. We've done Wim Hof breath work
Yeah,
together
yeah. That's
before.
good.
Like it wasn't his first time doing breath work, but he got it. And I think it's just not his first rodeo
Mm,
with it because yeah, and we were in a 7-month tantric mastermind, and
wow.
everyone was like, it takes a long time to be able to do this well. And I was like, wow, no, we did it like immediately. So he's
Wow.
definitely had some experience somewhere else before. Um, and yeah, so
Do you think more people are? I think it feels like more people are being made aware of this practice. Do you find that to be the
I
case?
think so. I think what's happening is more people are aware of the power of breath like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was in a very intellectual book club. I actually left it after this, but it was we all read James Nestor's book Breath. Have you read that one? It's really
No.
good.
Mm-mm.
I couldn't, they weren't interested in actually doing breath work. And that's when I was like, okay, it's time for me to leave this group because I'm really about the embodiment
Yeah. Yeah.
of the wisdom, not just like continuing to stay in the intellect. But yeah, I think people understand. And I'm going to share with you when I really got it was when I was having babies.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I had an ecstatic birth with my first child because I slowed down
Wow.
and for 2 days I just breathed
Wow.
and it felt like a cosmic orgasm when he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, people don't are not aware that that's even in the realm of possibility because we've been so indoctrinated that it's some horrible experience. It's
Yeah.
not. It's an initiation, and every single bit of it is perfectly designed to prepare you as a mother and to prepare the baby to come into the soul to come into the world. It is perfectly designed. Yeah.
Was that uh a son that you had or a daughter? Son?
Jackson. Yeah.
I'm sure just even hormonally or that's got to be a benefit to him. He may, whether he knows that or not. I'm sure something was passed down to him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very strong,
Mm,
very healthy.
yeah.
I had midwives who
Wow.
trusted in the process. And I think the second time around, I saw the different side of things because I was back in Richmond and I had a traditional doctor and it was very different. And it was like, how do you know you're in labor? I'm like, because the baby's coming. It was like just a complete like dismissal of the mother
Hmm.
and treating it like it was a medical event. So I got to see both
Hmm.
sides, which is really what made me want to become a doula
Hmm.
and a childbirth educator. So yeah, how we come into the world is actually really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's set this it's like a blueprint gets set.
What does mine say? I was born dead for for many minutes. I was dead and breached and belt and I was blue. The fact that we have a photo somewhere, I look like an alien. Like it was weird looking.
Oh,
And
were you an only or were you a twin?
I was an only. And but thankfully my mom they said, baby's dead. And then my mom was like, try again, and here I am. So the joke is, I've been dead. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Okay, so I love to live and I love to experience life. Um, but totally. I mean, and even
It was to your mom.
yeah, yeah. She
I was like,
man,
no.
and I know what happened energetically, what was going on. There was a war to not. I wasn't supposed. There was, yeah. It was wild. But breath work. Uh, I've done a lot of plant medicine to heal. Had horrific uh, life up until 20 years old, and then attempted suicide and didn't die, and then went straight into seeking what's true, what is God, all these things. But I went back into Christianity to uncover if I could find it there. But in all this work, when I started my healing journey, did a lot of plant medicine and emotional intelligence work and different things.
Mhm.
One of the most profound psychedelic experiences I've ever had was and breath work
Yeah.
and get having a facilitator. And it was through Zoom, actually. I met her at a plant medicine ceremony and I was like, I really want to learn breath work. So through Zoom, I'm laying on the ground. She's on Zoom just watching me. And I clicked over, and it was to this day one of the most healing experiences. I've never forgotten the lesson. Um, and this ties a little bit back to my birth that my dad's soul hadn't been in his body since he was 6 years old. And I saw his soul. I met his soul in the in between. And I didn't know
Hmm.
what the in between was, but his soul cried because he watched what his body did to me
Hmm.
and sobbed. And I was, I mean, just, oh,
Hmm.
God, just sobbing. And I also knew why his soul had been out of his body since he was 6 years old. And, the cycle had continued.
Yeah.
And when I came out of it, I realized in the movie The Matrix, in the second movie, where he's stuck in the train loop and he's neither in the Matrix or out of the Matrix, and that's the in between. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's the in between. And that's
Hmm.
where my dad's soul has been. Anyway, this is all through breath, and it's an amazing
Yeah.
journey to
Something
be
happened
on.
that made the soul want to escape.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All this is so fun and fascinating. It's so cool to meet beautiful people like you that are on this
Oh, well,
journey.
ditto. I mean, you've done all the work
Mm,
and I love that you talk about plant medicine because
yeah.
that, like after reading The Immortality Key, I think I shared that book with you
Yes,
too. I
yes,
was like,
yes.
oh, well, this makes perfect sense. The sacrament was always psychedelic.
All always. In fact, when they in 20 man, I'll look it up. I don't remember, but sometime in between 2014 to 2020, there was a mummified rabbi that was unearthed in Israel, north of Israel, in northern Israel, and the satchel of the 11 spices were still on his corpse. So in the 11 spices, one of them was cannabis,
Mhm.
and there was, I don't remember the others, but that's what essentially what the church has done with incense. That used to be the burning of plant medicine. And I was talking to a therapist recently, and I said all the Vedic texts because one of the times I was talking about, I was on a psilocybin journey, and I will never forget. I see this beautiful female entity,
Mhm.
goddess, whatever. I mean, I'm looking at her. She's looking at me in just such peace and presence. And she kind of had the form and from her head almost to her torso of a female body, but then it became flowy, like etheric dress or clothing or
Yeah.
something. And I knew right away, and she was turquoise. And this was like very important that she was turquoise for whatever reason. I was like, wow, peace. And I knew she was peace. I knew she was the goddess
Mm.
of peace. And I was like, wow, peace is so beautiful. Peace is
Mm.
so beautiful. And I'm looking at peace, and peace is looking at me. And I'm like, peace is so beautiful. Peace is the color of turquoise.
Yeah.
And I talked to my friend who's a yogi and very, very beautiful, beautiful spiritual soul a few days later. And I said, I saw this. I saw what peace looks like. And she is so beautiful. And he goes, oh, and I didn't say she was turquoise yet. He goes, was she turquoise? And I was like, what? And he knew from one of the Vedic texts that there's a goddess and she's the goddess of peace and she's turquoise. And I'm like, wow, such
Oh,
deep, profound like truths. And I really believe that the medicine that opened the heart, dropped the ego, and allowed these experiences was what the Roman Empire was wiping out. Because if people remembered through the earth and the
yeah.
the frequency of it, then they
Yeah.
don't need the system.
No. And all of the people that were traveling, because we're getting ready to go to Greece. I'm so excited. We're going to go
Mm.
and open up the entire pilgrimage in Delphi, which was like the center of the earth. So yeah, we're gonna do a really beautiful opening ceremony there, and then we're going to Santorini.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, but when I think about like the 3-day sacred theater experiences that were taking place in like Eleusis, for example,
Mm.
in Delphi, I'm like, I want to bring that back,
Can you imagine?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
We just did a really interesting sacred theater experience where we all walked in a spiral pattern. and we walked really slowly, and the
Mm,
music was really somber, and we picked a number. And when we got to the center, we could dance and interact, and we
mm,
couldn't speak, but we could do whatever we wanted to do with all of the, I guess there was like 30 of us.
wow.
And and then your number would get called
Mm,
and you died. And we had to walk into this other area and we could kind of see the ones who were still living. But it was the most intense experience. I'm not doing it justice. It
wow.
was
No,
truly sacred theater. Like
yeah,
the music, all of it was just like, oh. And it dawned on me like this is the kind of stuff that was going on in Eleusis.
yeah.
It was on plant medicine,
Yes, yes, yes,
And I'm
yes.
like, ooh.
Without
Anyway.
this knowledge, this is what's interesting. And I told the therapist is without this knowledge, what so the Bible was written and it doesn't minimize, it doesn't maximize, it doesn't invalidate, but all the prophets, what they were seeing, they were on plant medicine and they wrote it down and they saw four different faces would appear. I had the face of a man, I had the face of a leopard, I had the face of a bear, I had the face of an eagle. Oh, that is pure plant experience. And they write it down. It doesn't mean that it wasn't God. It doesn't mean it wasn't the divine in that. It doesn't mean, but it also doesn't mean it was. It just was an experience that someone had. And Moses, who marries the his wife's father was Jethro. He was the high priest of the Midianites, and the Midianites are the Druze to this day in the Middle East, and their ceremony involved the acacia tree, and the acacia tree in the Middle East has the highest concentration of DMT. So when he hears God speaking out of a burning bush that did not burn,
Mhm.
a bush that's on fire, but it did not burn. Well, of course, that's what that medicine is. And I think what I was saying to the therapist is without that knowledge, what it does is deify other human beings that they are greater than us. It's like
Yeah.
there must have been holier,
Well, because
selected.
remember, we were disconnected from ourselves,
Yeah,
disconnected from the earth, from the plants
right.
themselves. We were disconnected from all of it. So they made the structures such that you had to seek the person to get the, wisdom.
Yes, yes, that's right.
It was right. It was just the way it was set up.
Mm,
So it was only by sheer luck or a fabulous grandmother
yeah,
or,
yeah.
being able to. So I was trained in myofascial release by a man called John Barnes. He's
Mm,
wonderful. He's a shaman. And he said, I was left to my devices. I was able to play in the wilderness, in the woods as a child. And so I got in touch with my intuition that way.
wow,
And
wow.
so was I. I spent all day with the trees and just playing, building forts and that kind of thing. And I think it's sad to me that most children today, they might be able to like be good at fencing or something,
Yeah,
but they're really missing out on that opportunity to
right.
be a child of the earth.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I was lucky that I was able to do that. And yeah, I was lucky to be able to learn from him. A lot of times when I think about Yeshua and Mary,
Mm,
I know that's what they were doing.
yeah,
Because she was so highly trained in the
yeah,
temple of Egypt, and he, of course, traveled all over the place.
yes.
And when you look at the Bible, Mary's there every single time there's a healing. So
Mm,
they were doing myofascial release on people. They were, yeah,
mm,
tapping into the field
yes,
and doing that hands-on
yes,
healing.
yes, yes. It's
We did a
beautiful.
little bit of that, didn't we, in the Tantra temple?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's beautiful. How can people follow you, find you, connect with you, sign up, or how can women sign up for
Yeah.
your 7 months?
Yeah, it's so funny because I keep hearing like, "Oh, Hallie, you need to have like one offer." And I'm like, "No." I have like my signature 7-month experience, and that is
Mm,
the Magdalene Manifestation Temple. And that
mm,
starts every October and goes basically, it follows the myth of Inanna because we go down into the dark depths of the winter together and then we
mm,
reemerge in the spring. And so that is my ongoing offer. It's just how I live my life now. So we meet on the new moon and the full moon, and then everyone gets a one-to-one session. I keep it small,
Mm.
no more than like 15 tops. And then we have pilgrimages. We go all over the world. I've taken people to Glastonbury, to Mary Magdalene's cave.
Amazing.
The best way to find me is on Instagram. It's my name at
Mm.
Hallie Lifson, and everything is there in the link tree. And then for our retreats, I have a separate company. It's called Mythic Adventure Travel because we do all
Cool.
kinds of trips all over the place. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'll put those links in the show note, and thanks for coming on. I love you.
Oh my God, thanks for this chat. It was lovely. We went all kinds of places.
That's
Who
how I
knew?
like to do it. That's how I like to do it.
I know. I want to plan a plant medicine retreat with you.
Oh,
It'd be amazing.
yes, yes, yes.
And then we're going to start to like reconfigure a new modern day Eleusis.
Hmm. I
Wouldn't
love
that be cool?
Yes, yes. There's so much beauty and there's so much divine grace coming. And I'm just so thankful for you and Roman. And I love you both. And tell him, he knows, he
He
knows I
loves you
love
so
him.
much.
I love
Yeah.
him.
We're going to see each other again very, very soon. We'll make it
Yes,
happen.
yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you
I
for
love
having me
you.
on,
My
Lucas.
pleasure. Thank you. Well, sister, thank you again for coming on. I love you. I love Roman and everyone. I'm sending you so much love. Embodiment, embodiment, embodiment. That is the word. Who you were made to be, what you are, and what you are made of is all intentionally brought forth from God Himself, itself. God made you. And when you can embody yourself, you're tapping back into your divine birthright and the beauty that has been waiting for you to receive from the very time you took your first breath. So I hope this episode was a blessing. Make sure you check out Hallie. Find her on Instagram. I'll put the links in the show notes, and I'm sending you all love and blessings. And I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you're struggling to break free and need support, go to my website at lucasmack.com. There you'll find resources like videos and ebooks, and also information on how to work with me for coaching. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.